Good morning. Welcome back. We had such a terrific day yesterday. I hope you all got a chance to join the poster session. There was a lot of interest, and some of our rooms were actually at capacity for the people that could share their audio and video. So I'll make an announcement about that as we move into the work group action sessions later today. There's ample room for everyone to participate, and we did have some really lively discussions in several of the rooms that I popped in at least. So what a terrific day, and thank you for joining us again. Today we're going to start, I'll give you a quick overview of today, and then I will move to Chuck, who will introduce our first panel. We'll start today with talking about the future of MCBK, which I alluded to yesterday, and we've got some documents and plans for discussion, and we're really looking forward to a good discussion and your feedback on that. Then we'll move to a keynote with George Strawn, and then we will have a second talk with Mark Musin talking about metadata. Then after a break, we will move to the work group action sessions, which will be in breakout rooms in Hoppin, and I'll give some instruction of that just before the break. Then as we move towards the end of the day, we have some closing reflections by Leslie McIntosh and Peter Emby, who are MCBK insiders and supporters, and we really welcome their reflections and remarks of the great content that we've had all day yesterday and that I anticipate today. And then we'll close out towards the end of the day with the Connections and Cocktails Hour in various networking rooms, and we hope you can join us for that. So with no further ado, I will move to Chuck to introduce our first panel.
Thank you, Rachel. We're going to be joined in just a minute by Doug Van Houweling, and I'll introduce him at the time he's about to join. But let me begin with a few slides that will frame this discussion about the future of MCBK, and then I will be turning the chair, as it were, of the rest of this session over to Doug. So we talked yesterday about what MCBK was established to do. It was the way to get there, to what I call the second knowledge revolution. And it is a multi-stakeholder movement, obviously focused on mobilizing computable biomedical knowledge. We established the University of Michigan as the interim home, established a wonderful steering committee, which has given us invaluable advice as we proceeded. We introduced the manifesto yesterday, and we stood up, I think, a very valuable and informative website. And then we pushed forward with a number of activities following our organizing meeting in 2017, and these were including the annual open meetings in 2018, 2019, and the virtual meeting last year. There are some key differentiators to MCBK, and I think these were pretty much implicit in a lot of the things that were said yesterday, and sometimes things that were said pretty explicitly. The first one is obviously the focus on computable biomedical knowledge, but I do want to emphasize it, and I don't think we can emphasize this enough, and that is the intent and increasingly, I think, the reality that MCBK will span 4 domains of health and biomedicine, including healthcare, public health, research, and education, on, I think, the very supportable premise that computable biomedical knowledge is applicable to improvement at mass action level in all 4 of these domains. We are tied to the concept of learning health systems that enable this mass action, and although this isn't on the slide, I should mention, as editor of the Learning Health Systems Journal, that a relationship has been created between the journal and MCBK. And of course, MCBK has the stated core values which emphasize inclusion of all stakeholders. Here is another review of the manifesto. If you haven't read the manifesto, we hope you will, and it's available on the mobilizecbk.org website. These are the members of our steering committee who, as I said, have served us ably and effectively since 2018, and we're extremely grateful to all of these individuals for their help and support. You heard yesterday about the globalization of CBK and interest in China and Australia to complement the already well-established effort to mobilize CBK in the UK, and that's been led by Philip Scott and Jeremy Wyatt. We heard, of course, from Philip yesterday. I've already mentioned the relationship to the Learning Health Systems Journal. The poster abstracts were last year and will again be this year, published in the journal, and the additional development here, which I think is becoming increasingly important, is that Learning Health Systems is officially in the business of publishing peer-reviewed computable knowledge. I'm delighted to announce that the first computable knowledge paper is now in early view on the Learning Health Systems Journal website, and this is by Noam Arzt and colleagues, and it's a public health application relating to vaccination, and I think it is not only timely, but also very, very important to have a example, an archetype, as it were, of a computable knowledge paper now published in the journal, and we're looking forward to many more of these. And as Jerry Perry mentioned and others yesterday, we are very, very keen in MCBK on building relationships to other entities and organizations that have similar or complementary interests and engaged in pursuing goals and objectives that are complementary or in some cases overlapping with what MCBK is doing. So now I will just briefly introduce Doug Van Houweling, and he will take over from here, the chair of this session. Good morning, Doug. Doug is a professor emeritus of information in the University of Michigan School of Information and professor emeritus in service in the Department of Learning Health Sciences at the medical school. He's had a long career in higher education, information technology, leadership, and management, having led the information technology function at Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, and the University of Michigan. He has played a very prominent role in the development and deployment of advanced network infrastructure for higher education and research, first with the NSF-Net project, and then founding and leading Internet 2. So Doug, we are extremely grateful for your advice and leadership as MCBK moves forward, and I'll now turn the session over to you.
Great, Chuck. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk to all of you about the future of MCBK as a formal organization. We have shared with the steering committee a draft document and shared it with you in a pre-conference mailing. It's also available in a link that is posted in the chat for this session. And what I'm going to do now is very briefly run through that document and hit the high points of what it offers. First of all, there's a preamble and a rationale which really recaps many of the things that Chuck mentioned before. But I think it's important to add that I, in particular, and I imagine many of you, during the day yesterday and in our previous sessions and our work in the working groups, often said, boy, these are some extraordinary ideas. These are some extraordinary initiatives that we would like to move forward. And we have increasingly, as we've discussed this with the steering committee, come to the conclusion that MCBK needs to have a formal organizational presence so that it can actually undertake some of these activities that have been referred to in the presentations and implied by many of the conclusions and discussions and questions and answers that you all have provided during our sessions. So we're really interested now in moving forward to try to empower MCBK to take on these challenges and efforts that I think have been so well foreshadowed by the presentations to this point. So, of course, the manifesto provides the vision for MCBK. We want to make sure that we mobilize biomedical knowledge that can improve human health. We want to efficiently and equitably serve the learning and knowledge needs of all participants, as well as the public good, and reduce health disparities in the society overall. We want to ensure that the knowledge properly reflects the best and most current evidence in science and reduce the lag between our understanding of what good practice is and the ability of the community to actually engage in those practices. We want to achieve this through the evolution of an open, computable biomedical knowledge ecosystem dedicated to achieving the FAIR principles. So our proposed mission is that computable biomedical knowledge is foundational to the effectiveness, efficiency, and safety of health research, education, and care. And we want to establish a membership organization that convenes the multi-stakeholder community that is required to advance CBK, to set the future directions for that and to support those future directions. So in particular, we have three major goals. The first is convening and organizing a community, something that this meeting, of course, does, but the working groups, a whole series of activities that are already underway do. And setting directions for the overall movement of computable biomedical knowledge, and finally acting to actually mobilize that computable biomedical knowledge. So when we talk about the convening goal, we want to connect and coordinate different types of CBK stakeholders, experts, companies, organizations, agencies, researchers, we want to engage this broad community. We are especially interested, especially impressed, and I think you probably saw this in the poster sessions yesterday, by the entrepreneurial activity that is now occurring in the CBK arena. We want to coordinate the knowledge generators and creators with the users and the managers and the people who disseminate knowledge. We want to assemble the working groups and task forces that address the issues and challenges that are identified by the members. We're already doing that. We want to continue that, and we want to share the real-life applications and strategies of successful examples, as we did yesterday. We want to create and advocate publication and dissemination. The affiliation with the journal is one way, but we hope to do even more in that area. And finally, we don't want to try to do this alone. We want to do this in collaboration with other organizations and synergize efforts. So in order to accomplish that, we need to set directions. We want to identify the keys to success. And we want to especially understand the whole set of issues about diversity, equity, and inclusion to address those issues in the larger challenges we face in creating a healthy community. We want to identify the gaps and discover opportunities that we can use to advance CBK. We want to try to commission stakeholders, encourage them to develop strategies to achieve these goals, and we want to promote the value proposition of CBK through various communication means. Finally, we need to act. We need to contribute to an increasing body of research relating to computable biomedical knowledge. We need to advocate the appropriate policies through both education and lobbying. We need to establish standards and policies. We've already got a major effort going in this area, but we need to strengthen that. We want to encourage investments in CBK. We want to support the development of a workforce. This is not going to move forward unless we have talented people who are engaged and understand the opportunities of CBK. And of course, we want to promote the standards for data and knowledge representation in collaboration with standards development organizations. We want to encourage the development of infrastructure to support CBK, maintain an inventory of CBK activity, help advocate for and gain funding for activities that require collaborations among MCBK members. I want to be clear that our members have a lot of individual ability to gain funding, but some activities require collaboration among multiple members, and for those collaborative activities, we need to have an organization that can support those activities. And finally, where appropriate, undertake projects that are required to enable member success. So the organization we envision is a membership organization with the vision, mission, and goals we just described. We think that organizations and or members, individuals could be members. We're not settled on that. That's one of the issues that we're interested in understanding your thoughts. Initially, so that we don't have to build an infrastructure for this organization, we're going to propose that it be based at the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan has served as an incubator for many organizations that eventually moved on to become standalone organizations, or in some cases, they stayed within the University of Michigan, depending on what the organization's governance decided. But we're establishing this organization so that it can be moved into a freestanding status as the governance decides. So the question that we have for all of you is this the right direction? Should we be moving forward to create this more capable organization? We're interested in your comments. And please put them in the chat. And of course, we can have a discussion now about this, and subsequently based on the comments in the chat. And then we've got a short poll that we're going to post here on the main stage, which you can all respond to provide us with guidance. I'm very much looking forward to your comments. So Chuck, Rachel,
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
All right. The first comment, which just appeared, is can or should MCBK organization goals and strategies also include moving important needles, that is, driving measurable improvements in high priority healthcare and public health targets? This is from Jerry Asheroff.
I very much like the notion that we should have some measurable goals we decided in our discussions with the steering committee that it probably made sense not to try to pre-specify those, but that sounds exactly like the kind of thing we need in order to manage our progress.
And I think I'll add to that. That's exact kind of problem and goal that really requires the three working groups and the perspectives that we have. So moving the needle on any big public health challenge is going to require mobilizing a community of diverse stakeholders, looking at policy and regulation, dealing with trust issues, and then of course the standards and technical infrastructure. So I think that this tackling these kind of problems that can have a measurable impact will really involve this cross coordination and collaboration, but between the different groups and others that might not even be part of MCBK yet.
And I would just add to that and sort of pile on to Doug's comment that it is very important not to specify the particular needles we want to move at this point, but rather, and I think I'm endorsing Jerry's very, very important point, we should talk about the importance of moving needles and make clear that the needles specifically that will be moved will emerge from the interests of the members and public health and health and research issues that arise over the lifetime of the organization. We are not planning to make the poll available until we conclude the discussion. We're waiting for additional comments to come in. Please send your comments and questions through the Q&A or the chat, and we'll post them and address them.
And I think I'll add and just echo Doug's earlier request on his slide, which is in terms of we don't need to finalize anything. Obviously, this is a work in progress, but really, does this feel right, like we're moving in the right direction? How do people feel about the goals we put up? Is there anything glaringly missing? We're curious if folks think we're moving in the right direction, and then clearly we need input in time to really finalize and refine this.
Okay, we have a statement of endorsement from one of our participants for both individual and organizational memberships. Thank you for that endorsement.
We're seeing these comments come in.
They're coming in
a little delayed, but
they're coming in real time, or real time minus a short lag.
I think the audience can probably see them before we can, but this is good for everyone to reflect. And please do. We've allotted some time for people to really pose questions to us so that we can continue to think about these issues throughout the day and ongoing.
Okay. I'm not seeing the question. There we go. I would like to involve more iSchool students. I presume that means schools of information, and maybe a student working group if that has already begun. Excellent suggestion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Increasingly, the information schools are engaged in joint efforts with schools of public health and medical schools and so forth to try to understand how it's possible to advance the whole health agenda through better information and information technology. And so that makes a lot of sense to me.
I saw a question from Deborah Swain. Do you anticipate an executive director or administrative headquarters like most professional organizations have? Doug, you founded a few. How would you respond to that?
I think that assuming that the membership and the governance agrees, my own feeling is that, yes, we will evolve in that direction. I don't know exactly what form that will take. That's up to the governance. It's also up to how we attract the funding that will support this organization. But those are issues to be undertaken. I think there will ultimately need to be some level of professional staff to advance these goals.
Yeah, and I'll add to that this function of a governance and call it secretariat for MCBK has been provided by my department at the University of Michigan. I've been delighted to do this, and we've been extremely fortunate to have Michelle Williams and others, and Janelle Burley and others, playing extremely important and effective roles to keep MCBK going one way or another. As MCBK becomes a membership organization, that those roles will have to be expanded. Because inevitably MCBK will be taking on increasing amounts of programmatic activity, and that will all need to be supported, as will the membership. Membership services will be an important thing for MCBK to attend to. Rachel, you want to read the next question?
The questions are coming in, but I do want to respond to the engagement of students and just let everyone know that several of our work group co-chairs have been really enthusiastic. They see the opportunities and the need to include students in what we're doing and be open to the opportunities that students can bring in, new ideas, potential needles, Jerry, but also strategies and energy as well. So we did do some advertising. Many of our co-chairs did. Deborah Swain, who's joined the meeting, actually circulated, I think, to all the students in North Carolina that are involved with the Schools of Information and Public Health there. So we've got some interest there, and I would just suggest that everyone listening that there are opportunities to engage and lead. So no doubt we need additional working groups and additional work streams and communication streams. So I think there is a lot of opportunity for people to engage. And so I hope people listening today are thinking and the start is the work groups that we have now, but that is just that's just a starting point. Let's see. Philip Scott comments that the needles may vary from country to country, and actually I guess Jerry Osheroff had said that some needles scream for attention, for example, opioids, hypertension, pandemic response. And we agree, and we're thrilled, Jerry, that you and Brian were able to do that panel to at least show us some of the work that was happening around COVID-19, which was a huge motivator for us, and an illustrator of the kind of infrastructure that we need. So no doubt that there are other opportunities, and there's certainly variation across countries on that. So we hope to include and address those with the membership that we're gaining. It's going to have to be an international organization, yes or no? So Doug, Chuck, I think we had a global panel to address that, but do you have thoughts on the international aspect of this?
So I think that's an interesting question. I have participated in organizations that were founded here in the United States that wound up affiliating with similar organizations in other countries around the world as one approach to that. Rather than trying to make an organization international, understand from the beginning that you'll have similar organizations collaborating across the world. That's one approach. The other approach is to actually initially open this to international membership. And in fact, it's possible to think of an evolution where we start in one place and wind up in another. But I do think that it's probably, if MCBK really moves forward, the needs and values and so on that exist in different parts of the world's geography will probably demand different governance in different regions, and we'll wind up probably with an affiliation of related organizations. That's all, of course, up to the governance as we get started in this organization.
I just want to, on top of that, state my own strong belief that this needs to be, however it is organized, a global movement in concept and in spirit, with the ability to coordinate as appropriate efforts around the world. We've already crossed that bridge, so to speak. We had a wonderful panel yesterday that spoke to this. So it's more a question, to my mind, of how we do it, and certainly not a question of whether we do it.
We have to move on.
Yes, we're coming to the end of our time. I just want to read a comment, and then we're going to launch the poll. Okay. Tony Salamanides wrote, "I feel in our present organization we have avoided issues of power between individuals, institutions, and corporations. Will a membership organization disturb this balance? Can we be a learned society and an industry club?" Doug, 30-second comment on that?
My experience is that that's possible, that we need to carefully define the roles of members so that we create an environment in which the common interests of the community can be pursued while the competitive kinds of efforts are made, are empowered. We talk about this as co-opetition, but I think that's possible with the appropriate organizational structure.
Thank you. Okay, I think we do have to move on. Of course, we've captured all of these comments, and they are available for everyone here to review and look at. And as the steering committee proceeds, based on this session, with the further development and guiding the further development of MCBK, the comments we are not discussing today for lack of time will be very much folded in to our deliberations, and we may be getting back to some of you who have made these comments so articulately. Okay, I think it's time to launch the poll. The polls are up. There is a tab in the Hop-in application for you to bring up the poll and respond. And let us wait just a bit to give people a chance to respond. We hope everybody will. There are 3 questions in the poll.
Right. You see the 3 questions. What is your opinion of the MCBK, of the Transforming MCBK to a Membership Organization document, the document we share? The second question is, assuming the MCBK has organizational membership, how likely is it that your organization would join? And then finally, assuming that we have individual memberships, how likely is it that you would personally join? So those are 3 pretty simple questions that we look forward to having your responses.
And just to add on to Chuck's point about the follow-up, this is great. There's so many questions. I wish we could have a longer discussion now, but we've talked about having a separate forum for this at Town Hall or something of that nature where we can discuss more deeply and actually have people verbally and on video be able to share their ideas.
Oh yes. Thanks, Rachel, for bringing that up. We specifically anticipated that we would not have time to get to everybody's comment today. And we are planning a town hall pretty soon after this meeting to engage in a more thoroughgoing discussion of all the important issues that have been brought up. So what we're going to do is prolong the suspense here for everybody. We're going to report the results of the poll a bit later in the meeting to give everybody a chance to respond.